In this tutorial, you're going to learn how to create a two-page spread that features the shadow press, station, and debossing folders by Tim Holtz. These are what are used to create these various banners that are on the page. This particular page is a travel page, but it could work with almost any theme that you wish. One of the features that you'll notice is that I actually printed my pictures out in sepia to sort of go along with the background paper and the colors that I've picked, but you don't necessarily have to do that. It could work just as well with colored photographs as well. So on this particular page, or two pages, you're going to need the following materials. You're going to need 3 sheets of black soot distress cardstock, 12 by 12 in size. You're going to need 2 sheets of 12 by 12 vintage photo distress cardstock, again 12 by 12. 3 12 by 12 sheets of shabby shutters distress cardstock. You're also going to need a couple of sheets from the Tim Holtz paper pad collection entitled Destinations, and it really doesn't matter which ones you use for this, it's your choice. You'll need a couple of tags. I just used shipping tags from Staples, or you can buy some right at the store. You'll need a couple of pieces of off-white cardstock for the stamps, and also for some of the little banners that are up in here. And I would recommend getting the textured cardstock. It just adds a nice feature to it. You're also going to need 2 feet of dark green twine or ribbon of your choice for in the tags and this little embellishment up here. And you're going to need the word bands by Tim Holtz, and they come in several different sets, and I think you get about 8 in a package. I used 3 of them here. And you'll need some brads to attach them with as well. And of course, Tim Holtz does have his own brads, but it doesn't matter. You can use his, or you can use whatever you happen to have laying around. You're going to need the templates for cutting out these banners, which I've included in your kit, but I also have on the video explained the dimensions as well, so that you can make your own templates or just cut them out freehand. You're also going to need the following things in terms of equipment. You're going to need some pop dots, some wet glue, some double-sided tape, some black pigment ink or black soot distress ink, walnut stain distress ink, an ink applicator. You're going to need a paper trimmer, some scissors, a hole punch, the kind of handheld hole punch that you can punch holes in for your tags, a corner rounder, the shadow press debossing folders from the set called Destinations, and you're going to need the shadow press station and a brayer as well. And that should get you going with everything. So look to the next section on this DVD, and we'll begin creating our page. In this first step, we're going to create our background pages. Now, you need 2 pieces of black soot 12 by 12 distressed cardstock, and you'll need 2 pieces of vintage photo distressed cardstock. The vintage photo has been cut down to 11.5 by 11.5, so that when we fasten it to our black soot background sheet, we have about a 1/4 inch border all the way around. And also, you're going to want to edge the vintage photo piece before you lay it down with black soot ink or any black ink you happen to have. And I'm using a Tim Holtz ink applicator, and I'm just going very lightly around the edges. All this does is make it pop up from the background a little bit, gives it a little bit more of a dimensional effect. But you can put it on as thickly as you wish. If you want a little wider border, then you could put a little bit more on the edges. Okay, once that's done, I'm going to use double-sided tape. You could use wet glue, you could use your tape runner. Problem with the tape runner is, and I think you've heard me say this before in my previous videos, over time it may dry out and your pages will fall apart. I find with the double-sided tape, it holds it much better. You don't need a lot. I just put it on the perimeters. I don't bother about the centerpiece. That's strictly up to you if you wish to do that. So I've laid my double-sided tape down, and I'm using 1/2 inch here, but you could use 1/4 inch. And before you start peeling off the backing, I always like to take my bone folder and varnish each strip just to make sure it's all stuck down well. And once I've done that, then I can peel off my back piece. Now, if you have fingernails, you can probably lift this up pretty easily. I don't, so I just use a paper piercer, and that helps me get a hold of each strip. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just peeling off the protective backing. And now I'm going to take my 12 by 12 black soot cardstock, and I'm going to center this piece onto it. And I just eyeball it. And I think that's about got it. And then just make sure it's stuck down. So now I have my two background pieces. Next thing I'm going to put together are my photo mats. And as I said, you need 2 photo mats for 4 by 6 pictures. And so what I've done here is I cut another piece of black soot cardstock. I cut one piece, I'm double matting these. I cut one piece 4.5 by 6.5, and the other piece 4.5 by 6.5. And then I used shabby shutters, and I cut each of these pieces 4.25, sorry, this way, 4.25 by 6.25. Okay, so 4.25 by 6.25. And I mounted those using double-sided tape. But before I laid them down, and I'm going to illustrate that with my 5 by 7 piece, I did the same thing as I did with the vintage photo paper. I just used my black ink to go all the way around the edges. Again, it's just a subtle way of making the whole photo mat pop from your background. Okay, and to mount these, again, I used double-sided tape. I've already varnished this. You could use wet glue, it's up to you. I prefer the double-sided tape. And so, once again, I'm just going to take off the protective backing. And I'm going to center it on the black piece of cardstock. The measurements for these, because this is for a 5 by 7, your black piece is going to be 5.25 by 7.25, and your shabby shutters piece is going to be, sorry, that's the measurements for the shabby shutters. Shabby shutters piece is 5.25 by 7.25. The black soot piece is 5.5 by 7.5. And just take this and center it. And there we have the basic foundation for our page. So in our next step, we're going to create the double pocket. To create the pocket, which is a double pocket, and the tags that fit inside of it, we're going to take a piece of Tim Holtz's destination paper from his destination paper pad, but you could use any travel theme paper you wish, or any vintage paper, up to you. And you're going to take out one piece that you particularly like, and you're going to cut it down to 8.5 by 11. Then you're going to score it along the short part at 4.25, and then on the long part you're going to score it again at 5.5. Take that, turn it upside down, and fold, and use your bone folder to make a good crease. So fold it along that score line, open it up, and fold it along this score line. Then open it up, and on the same side you're going to cut in from the left hand side right to the center fold. See where the center fold is, along here, just to the center. So now you've got a flap. Next thing you're going to do is you're going to take the bottom corner and you're going to fold this up so that it aligns with that center score line. So I'll just do that again so you can see that, and give that a good crease. You're going to fold the top left-hand corner over, but only so that you have from the center line about 1 inch to 1.5 inches. You can just eyeball it. So from here to here is about 1 inch, 1.5 inches. And again, give that a good crease. Now take this flap and fold it all the way over to this part. And again, give it a good crease. This bottom part, you're going to take this flap and you're going to fold it under, just like that. And then you're going to take this corner piece and you're just going to fold it right over top of the other triangular fold. So right along here, along this edge, just fold it over the top of that and give it a good score. So this bottom piece comes to the top, and this is going to create your double pocket, but you need to secure this. So to do that, just open up this flap and using wet glue or double-sided tape, and in this case the double-sided tape I think is better, because if you use wet glue, you're going to have to wait for it to dry. So I'm just going to put a strip along here. And remember, it's a pocket, so we do not want to put any along this line here, or we would not have a pocket. And you see where it folds up along here? We're going to put another piece right here. Varnish it. Peel off the protective backing. Now, this part might open up a little bit, and if that bothers you, then I would take another piece of tape and I would secure it just along this edge. You don't have to, but it just makes maybe a little bit more secure of a pocket. So this piece comes over first, secure it. This piece comes up to the top, secure it, and I like to go over it with my bone folder in all the places where there's the glue. And there you have a double pocket. Now to finish this off, you can take a corner rounder, and I'll just grab my corner rounder, and I like to round off this one corner, just like that. And I also like, again, to distress the edges, so this will stand out from the background, and I just go over with my black ink all the way around the edge. Now if you want to get even fancier, before you stick this all down, you could edge each of these pockets as well. I haven't done it on mine. So that's how we create the pocket. Now let's talk about the tags. So you need 2 ordinary manila tags. These are actually shipping tags from Staples, but we also sell them in the store. And you'll need that leftover piece of paper that you created when you cut down the 12 by 12 sheet of destinations paper to 8.5 by 11. And that will give you plenty of room to create 2 tag covers. So what I've already done here is I used the tag as a template, laid it on top of my cardstock, traced it out, and then simply cut it out with my scissors. And then I glued it down. You could use wet glue, or I use double-sided tape again. It doesn't matter. And you will be covering up the hole. So when that happens, just use your paper punch to align it and punch the hole into it. So I'll just show you how I went about doing this. Let's tuck that little tag in there. Doesn't matter what side of the paper that you draw your pencil lines on. I would suggest you do it on the side that is going to be glued down. That way, if you're not quite that accurate in cutting your lines, it's not going to show up. Take my scissors. These are Tim Holtz scissors, by the way, and I really like them because they have a serrated edge, and it really helps you to cut a nice straight line. Okay, let's get rid of our scraps. Save the scraps. You might want to use them for the little banners later. Okay, this is the side I want. So I'm going to line it up there. So I'm going to now apply either my wet glue, or in my case, I'm using double-sided tape. And I just go around the perimeter fairly close. Let's get rid of this. And again, varnish my tape. And peel off the protective backing. And just align it. I start with the bottom. And this is where wet glue might be a little better because it's a little more forgiving. You can slide things around if it doesn't line up. Okay, have that covered. Now, I look on the back side and I do have a little bit of overhang, but I'm just going to simply trim that off. And then using a hole punch and turn it over so I can see what's happening here. Oh, okay. Had a little burp in my video there for a minute. And I'm just lining it up with the hole. Give it a good punch. And now I have my other tag, and it just slips in there. Now later we'll come back and do some shadow pressing onto this, and we'll add our twine. But now we have our pocket and our tags. In this step, we're going to cut all the large banner pieces out along with any backgrounds that are needed. So for this, you're going to need some more of the 12 by 12 black cardstock. Probably whatever you have left over from where we've trimmed it before will probably work. You will also need some of the Shabby Shutters distress cardstock. You're also going to need 2 pieces of off-white, and I use textured cardstock. Actually, you need to cut 2 of these out. You can get 2 of these out of one sheet of 8.5 by 11, no problem. You will need a piece of metal, copper metal, and this can be Ranger's brand or whatever. I believe Spellbinders has a brand as well that you can use. And you're going to need some shimmer sheets in gold. Now, there's a couple of ways you could go about cutting these out. You could draw them out with a pencil, and if you did so, there's a couple of measurements you need to be aware of. You need 1 large banner set for the page, and that consists of a piece of black soot cardstock and Shabby Shutters cardstock. Now the measurements for those pieces, here you can see on my little template, it's 6 inches long by 2 inches wide. The halfway mark, it's 1 inch, and that's important because you're going to want to make a mark 3/4 of an inch down from the top edge at 1 inch in the center, and then draw a diagonal line from the one point to that center point and from the other point to that point, and that will give you the V when you cut it out. Similarly, for that piece of Shabby Shutter that goes on top of it, it's the same measurements except with about 1/4 of an inch shaved off. So instead of 6 inches long, this piece is going to be 5 and 3/4 inches long, and it's going to be, instead of 2 inches wide, it's only going to be 1 3/4 inches wide. The center point here is at 7/8 of an inch, but you're still going to cut in 3/4 of an inch from this edge. So when you mark this at 7/8 of an inch, draw your line 3/4 of an inch down to join it. Okay, so now you've got your 2 pieces, and so they will nest together like this. For these pieces, it's very much the same, except the black piece, the black soot piece, is going to be 4 1/4 inches long by 2 inches wide, halfway mark is 1 inch, just as the same as with the longer piece, and you're going to come down 3/4 of an inch for the center of the V. And the piece that goes on top of that, which is in the shabby shutters, is going to be 4 inches long by 1 3/4 inches wide. Center point is at 7/8 of an inch and 3/4 of an inch in. And you're going to need 3 of each of these. So 3 of the shabby shutters paper and 3 of the black soot cardstock. Now, if you want to make this easy on yourself, draw out a template as I have done here. And for those of you that have taken the class, I have provided you with a template for drawing this out, so you don't need to do any measuring at all. Similarly, you're going to cut 2 banner pieces that are the same size as the black cardstock piece for our first banner, 6 inches long by 2 inches wide. You can use that template again for that. And you need 2 of those, and they're in the off-white textured cardstock. Again, you're going to cut exactly the same dimensions in the piece of copper metal and in the 2 pieces of shimmer sheet as well. Some of the copper metal does come with a backing on it that you can easily see your pencil marks with, but either way, since this is metal and the shimmer sheets, they will leave an impression if you press hard enough with your pencil to cut these. So let's cut one so I can show you some tricks here about lining things up. We'll move these out of the way for now. We'll take this piece, and this piece is for the shorter, for this one here. So I have my piece of black cardstock. Now I cut this beforehand, and it's 4 1/4 inches by 2 inches, according to the template. And then to get the V in here, line the points up. Don't worry about the bottom. It may not fit exactly. Just line the points up with the top of the black cardstock, and take your pencil and just simply draw in the V. Then take your scissors, and my marks will probably be very difficult to see on camera, but they are there. I can see them, and they might be slightly off from the corners, so just eyeball it so you know where the center point is, and just cut into it. And so there we have the background piece. For the top part, out of the shabby shutters paper, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to use the other template, because this piece now is 4 inches this way and 1 3/4 inches this way. Line the points of the template up on top with the 2 corners. Take your pencil, draw in your line, and just use that as your guide to cut from point to center and from the other point to the center. And there we have it. Now, if by chance the bottom piece of this, let's line this up, you want a little border all the way around, about 1/8 of an inch is what that measures out to roughly. If for some reason this piece is a little longer, just trim it to fit to get the border all the way around. This is not an exact science, and when you're done and after we embellish it all, no one's going to notice if you're slightly off on your measurements. One tip: sometimes this distress paper, depending on your paper cutter, will leave rough edges around the edges of that. So if you take a piece of sandpaper, I've got the sanding block by Holtz, and you can just rub it along those little pieces, and those little pieces will come right off. Now we will be later distressing each of these as well, so this also adds to the distressing effect because it gives the ink something more to grab onto. So there we have all of the banner pieces cut out. So what we need to do next before we attach them is we need to do the shadow press embossing on each of these pieces, and I'm going to show you that in the next step. Okay, so now that we've got our banners cut out, we're going to add the words to the banners, and these are done with the Tim Holtz shadow press station and debossing folders, and it gives us the words that we have on each of these pieces along with the other side that has the other banners as well. So what this system looks like is it comes in a package of 6 different words, and they all come by different themes. There's about 6 or actually it might be more like 8 or 10 different themes. I've picked the one that's called Expedition Set, and it has words in it like adventure, journey, discover, explore, go, see, do, found. We're going to use the first 4, the adventure, journey, discovery, and explore. So I'm just going to pop those out, and I'm just going to take out the adventure one for now to show you what these look like. So they're like any kind of embossing folder. They're raised. These are actually called debossing folders, though. Instead of raising it up, it sinks it in. And there's one half that is a little bit raised and the other half that isn't. And you just slip your card stock in between these and run them through your die cutting machine, just like you would with any other embossing folder. And it doesn't matter which machine you're going to be using because they'll work with them all. I'm going to be using the Vagabond in a few minutes. You also need this handy little device, though, and this is what makes this a little bit different. You can just emboss these into your cardstock and you'll see the impression that's left. But if you really want to make it stand out, you want to add some color to it. And in our case, we're adding simply black ink. And you can use any color ink that you like and basically any kind of ink. I'm using the Distress Black Soot right now. You'll also need this little frame, and this little frame is called the Shadow Press Station. And what it does is it fits over top of this debossing folder so that the ink only goes on the letters and not all the way around on the other surfaces that are here. If you were to try to ink this by hand, you would never be able to do it because you would get ink all onto the parts you don't want inked to be on. And of course you need a brayer for this as well for applying the ink. And this is the Tim Holtz brayer, and I like it a lot because it's got these little feet. And so when I've inked it up, I can set it down and it doesn't get ink all over my work area. So let's ink this up and I'll show you how it works. So you open up the debossing folder and you'll feel this one part that's raised in here. This fits underneath this little frame. This is called the Shadow Press Station. Now you notice it has a little point here that should face up and over to the left. And there really isn't, there's a little track here, but this does not really snap into it, but you'll feel where it fits in. But it's still sitting there. It's not snapped in there. So you have that. You take your ink and you take your brayer and you ink it up. Now the best way to ink up a brayer is to do what I'm doing, going from one side to the other side, but not back and forth like this, because you go back and forth like this, you'll only get ink on part of your brayer. So this way you'll get it all the way around. And you want to be fairly generous with the ink. You notice I'm not going from side to side because this is smaller than that, so I can pretty much just do it in the middle. Once I've got enough ink on it, I'm going to just put my finger on here to hold this steady, and I'm going to start at this end, and I'm not applying any pressure, I'm just rolling it across. And I'm going to do this several times, back and forth, to get a fairly generous amount of ink on this. And as I said, you can use any color and any type of ink that you wish. Let's move this out of our way, because now I want to bring in the Vagabond. So I'm going to carefully lift this off. Now this is inky, so don't touch it because you'll smear it. And I'm going to bring in my Vagabond. Now I'm a little short on space here, so I may not be able to get the whole Vagabond in the shot, but you'll get the idea of what I'm doing. So I need my platform and my acrylic plates, and you create a sandwich for your particular machine in the way that you would normally create the sandwich if you were just doing simple folder embossing. I'll put down my bottom plate on here. Now, for this one, I did the word adventure, and that's my title for the double page spread, and that's the very first one at the very top of the first page. So I've got my banner piece that's cut out here, and I'm going to put it inside this folder. Now, the word starts from here and goes to this end. So when I fold this over, I don't want my word to go off the points. So I'm just going to adjust that, and I'm trying to keep it centered. And the less movement you can make, the better, because you don't want this to smear. So I've got that laid down there. Put on my top plate. Okay, it looks pretty good. And I'm going to run it through. And I don't have any power. And why is that? Because my cord was loose. Okay, I think I'm okay now. There we go. And I sometimes like to run it forwards and backwards. It's the beauty of the Vagabond. You have a reverse. Just to get that ink right in there. Take it off, open it up, and there we have it. There's our word. Doesn't that look great? Now this one I made a little crooked. I'm not going to worry about that because that doesn't bother me. But if it bothers you, then you'd have to try it again. But it's as simple as that. And you notice there isn't any ink where I don't want ink to be. So that's how you use the shadow press station. And we're doing that for several of the words. We're doing it for our title word up here, and we're doing it for the tag that's going to go on the pockets right here. But we're also going to do it on the second page on the word journey as well. So the other ones, we're just doing a simple embossing. So I'm going to show you how that works as well. It's not too complicated. It's done very much in the same manner. So on one of our smaller little banners on the first page, we were going to use the word explore. So let me find the word explore in my set. And here we go. I have the word explore. And this is very easy because this just works the same way as any embossing folder works. So you just get it positioned in here. And again, I want to center it and I don't want it to go over the edge. That's why my points are sticking out, because otherwise I wouldn't get it onto the sheet. Put my platform and my bottom plate on, and just hang on to this. It's a little fiddly trying to get it all lined up. You're not always going to be perfectly straight, but you want to know something? Again, that doesn't really bother me. And run it through once, and for good luck I run it back again. And there we are. And this one, of course, does not have ink on it, but it does leave a fairly deep impression, as you can see. So that's the technique you're going to use for all the words on each of your pieces. And just to remind you what those words are, let me move this out of our way for a second and all of this, and let's bring back the sample pages. So on the first page, we're doing adventure on the large tag, and on the two smaller tags, we're doing one without ink that says explore, which is what we just did a minute ago. And then on this one, we're going to use the ink again to create the word discover. On the second page, we're doing journey down here, and again, we're adding a little bit of ink to that. But on these, we are not doing anything as far as inking is concerned. We're just simply going to run it through like we would any embossing folder on the shimmer sheets and on the copper piece and on the off-white piece. The only difference with the off-white piece here is that I took a little bit of walnut stain ink and went over the entire surface, including the edges, to make it blend a little bit better into the rest of the background. So let's talk a little bit about how to do that. So let's take these away and let's go back to our embossing folder. And for those two pieces, I used a different word on each one. I used the word explore and I used the word go see do. So since I've got explore already out here, let's do explore. So we're just going to put it into the center of our embossing folder. Let's get out the Vagabond again. Get this into the shot. And take our platform and our bottom acrylic plate. And I'll take this and I'm putting it fairly close to the point because part of this, as you know on the sample, is being tucked underneath the picture. So we don't want to hide the word, but we want to have enough to tuck under the picture. So I'm putting it close to the point. Lay it down. Put our plate on. And run it through. put our vagabond away. Get the plates out of our way. And take this out. And so there we have the word. Okay, but now we're going to take our walnut stain ink. And just give me a second because I need to find my walnut stained ink. I need my applicator. I need my applicator and I need my ink. And here we go. And so all I'm going to do is I'm going to get ink on my applicator, and then I'm just going to lightly go over the surface of my banner. And then I'm just going to do some edging with the same color. Now you can see by using the walnut stain ink on top of this already embossed, it makes it pop as well, even though we didn't use any color in this piece when we did the debossing. So as I said, all the other pieces you're going to do in a similar manner. So I've already outlined what goes on each piece, and you have a picture at the beginning of this video showing you what it all looks like, so you can figure out where you want to put the words. And you don't have to do it in the same order as I did. You don't even have to use the same words I did. It's totally up to you what you want to put there. So here are all our finished banner pieces. They've all been debossed now, as I showed you in the last set of instructions. And I also debossed the tags, which is much more subtle because you have more of a pattern on them, but you can see them along the edge there. And these are meant for journaling or adding extra pictures too, but it's just an added touch. Also, I've now punched out using my banner punch right here. This little thing. Love this punch. This punch is one I use a lot for little embellishments. And out of the Tim Holtz Destinations paper, I punched out 6 more of these little flags and a couple out of the off-white, which I then went over with the walnut ink on the edges and on the top of it. And I also edged all of these, as well as all of these pieces, with the black distress ink as well. So these are now all ready to go. Oh yes, so one other little addition. I put in a little piece of twine in the top of each one of these tags as well, just to finish it off. You could use a piece of ribbon, your choice. So next, in terms of embellishments, we have to look at the little postage stamps and how we make those. The final elements to this page are some of the small embellishments. There were some postage stamps on here. 2 of them show an airplane on them, and basically I just stamped these on off-white cardstock, cut them out, and then I distressed them just using walnut stain ink all around the edges and a little bit onto the inside of these two to give them an aged look. Similarly, there are 3 postage stamps, which again are a rubber stamp. I just stamped it on the off-white, and then I used this punch, which is a punch I've had for a long time, which makes cuts out like a postage stamp design. However, if you don't have one of these punches, and I'm not sure where you can get them anymore, because as I said, I've had it for a very long time, Spellbinders does have a set of dies that will also cut out in postage stamp sizes. They are called the postage stamps nestabilities Spellbinders, and the number of these is 64-348. So I'm sure we can order them at the store, or you might be able to pick them up online if you want to do this kind of thing with the rubber stamps. And what I also did with these is after I punched them out, I just went around the edges with walnut stain. Let's see if you can get a little closer, just to give it a little bit of an aged look around the edges. Now, the airplane stamp and the postage stamp both came from 2 separate sets of Stampers Anonymous rubber stamps. The 1-pound postage stamps came from this set called London Sights, and its call number is CMS158 if you want to order it. You can see it comes with Big Ben, another type of postage mark, the British flag, one of the guards, and the word London on it. It's kind of a nice set, especially if you're going to travel or have been traveling in London. This would be very useful for your scrapbook page. And the other set, which I find is really good for all kinds of different pages, especially travel pages, is Stampers Anonymous Call Correspondence CMS225, and that's where I got the airplane stamp. But you can see there's quite a few different postage type of related stamps on this set. So both are worth picking up. I also created another bow, used the bow maker for this, and if you don't know how to use a bow maker, go to our channel on YouTube, Class Act Oshawa, and I have a little tutorial on how to make bows using our bow maker. And I made it out of that same green twine that I had around the tags. And the last set of embellishments come from this set of word bands by Tim Holtz, his ideology line, or ideology line probably is the better way to say it. They're called word bands, and they have all kinds of different expressions on them. The journey awakens the soul, life is about creating yourself, etc., etc. And I chose 3 of these to put onto the 2-page spread. And to hold them down, I used just brads, and I used Tim Holtz brads because they actually go very well with the word bands, but you could use any kind of brads you have laying around for this. And that's just a way to hook them onto your page. So now we have everything created, so now it comes time for the final assembly. So here's our final layout, and you saw this at the beginning. So you can put your elements on the page any way you wish, but this is my suggestion. So first thing that I would do is I'd lay down my pictures. And if you notice, what I did was I raised these pictures, this picture up using pop dots, and this one I laid flat, and this one I also raised up with pop dots. It's really your choice what you do. It's very hard to see in the video, but I also used my debossing folders from the Shadow Press set and actually debossed words right into the actual pictures. So they are very subtle. I don't know if I can get a close-up so you can see it a little bit. There you go. That might be good, but you can see right along there. I put in go, see, and do. It's just another little subtle embellishment that when people are examining your pages, this sort of sneaks up on them. It's a little bit of a surprise. So once I had the pictures down, then I started laying out the elements. I put the pocket down here, and I put in the tags here, and then I took one of the words, discovery, and I mounted it this way, and on top of that, using the brads, I put one of the word bands across the top of that. I also used a word band at the top of this page, and I used a word band over on this spot on the page. You can see where I've placed all of my debossed banners, and then of course I have this fan effect with the other embossed banners, and I tucked them a little bit under this picture, and one reason why I raised this picture so I could easily tuck them under here. I then added the small little banner pieces as well. In an array, I used 5 of them here. I used the 2 off-white ones that we colorized with walnut stain ink and placed them in behind 3 of the ones that were punched out of the destinations paper. And over here, the other 3 destination papers that I punched the banners out of, I've put here, and I've put them in sort of a fan sequence too and overlapped them with the bigger banners. And this one on the top I raised with pop dots as well. You can see where I put the postage stamps in the various spots on the page and that extra bow that we created. So as I said, you can put these in any arrangement you like. This is my suggestion. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and we'll see you on the next one.